Sara. Sara, it's me, the devil.
You sound a little pansy there, Satan.
Jesus, Sara, take it easy.
Hey, I do want to say this, and I've been kind of saving it up, and I want it to feel real genuine here when I say, from the bottom of my heart, hail Satan.
Oh, Sara, I don't need your praise, although I certainly welcome it. No, I'm really here just to, give you praise and support you for all you're doing for a Shin Show.
Wow. I'm getting recognition for my work from a male figure?
That's true, Sara. You are getting recognition for your work because you really deserve it.
You're right. I do deserve it.
I mean, you deserve it, but there's no need to get a big head about it.
Why not? What's the downside here?
The downside is that I might withdraw my support for your podcast, and you're only going to have success if I am backing you up 100%.
You got facts on that? You got some fact checking?
Well, of course I've got proof. Observe all of the most famous celebrities and politicians. Just throw me out a name.
John Travolta.
Yeah, I own him. Next.
I don't have any others. Jimmy Kimmel.
John Travolta's enough. Jimmy Kimmel also controlled by Satan.
Are you telling me that everyone in Hollywood is controlled by Satan?
Well, not controlled, but on the payroll, I don't know. Look, I support them. That's the point.
Okay, but I'm not in showbiz. I'm in radio, baby.
Is that what you call this?
A Shin Show.
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 Hey, Piggy, are you tired of the abusive relationship our food forces you into with your toilet? Then try our new health food option, the Taco Slime Shit Feast, a delicious, bioengineered, artificially intelligent, sentient being, manufactured by our top team of captured Soviet scientists. Talk about a mouthful. This authentic taste on classic Mexican cuisine crawls out of the lead-plated case you purchased from our drive-thru and into your throat, through your digestive tract, and smoothly out of your anus completely autonomously, cleansing and clearing all, and we mean all, intestinal buildup as it goes. Has the bathroom become a dark place to which you never want to return? No worries. The fresh and tangy Taco Slime Shit Feast is bred with olfactory organs that direct it straight to your latrine, leaving only a very thin trail of caustic ooze in its wake. The zesty Taco Slime Shit Feast, now covered by most insurance, is available in mild, caliente, and Diablo, and is perfect for that pre-colonoscopy cleanse or a light anytime snack.
Not available for dine-in customers. Purchase requires signed liability waiver and available by prescription only. Side effects may include loose or bloody stools, teeth, and fingernails, arrhythmia, hair loss, neuropathy, blindness, and hearing impairment. In rare cases, death and zombification may occur. Don't order the Taco Slime Shit Feast if you think you may be pregnant or nursing. Ask your doctor if the Taco Slime Shit Feast is right for you.
The Taco Slime Shit Feast. It's good. Darius knew that Cambyses wasn't really as good of an emperor as his father. And
so
then
he kills him.
He kills him, and then he tells everyone, hey, he accidentally killed himself, but before he died...
He named me emperor.
Well, he just told me that he killed his brother, the next rightful heir, without telling anyone.
Yeah.
So... if there comes a guy along and says, hey, I'm Bardia, the son of Cyrus, and my brother's dead, so I'm now the king, he's lying. He's lying because...
I said so.
Yeah, because the guy who's now dead conveniently told me that he killed him without telling anyone. No one else knew. Just me and him. And so anyway, now I'm killing him, and I'm king now. And that's what happened. And he was called the shopkeeper because he made great strides in the economic advancement of the Persian Empire.
Just like Trump today.
No, way better than Trump. He made actual tangible...
Was this Cyrus or Darius are we talking about here?
See, you left halfway through the conversation.
Well, I had
so
to
you
pee.
don't get to know.
It's not my fault. I had to pee.
No, Darius, through very...
Nefarious?
Yeah, nefarious. Maybe or maybe not. This is the thing. We just don't fucking know. It sounds fishy, though. The official story sounds fishy. But Darius...
Seems fake, but okay.
Yeah, he killed... Cambyses dies, whether by his own hand or... There's other stories that say he jumped on his horse and the tip of his scabbard for his sword had fallen off and it stabbed him in the leg and it got infected and he died.
Yes.
Sucker.
Yeah, there's some competing stories about these ancients because we don't really know what happened.
Yeah, but anyway, so Darius was the third emperor of the Persians, or king. He was the third king of kings, but he was in no way related to the man, Cyrus the Great, who started the Persian Empire, which was at first just the Medes.
You know what I know about the Persian Empire?
No.
What?
That's who they fought in the movie 300.
Well, that's how this whole thing starts. The whole thing starts as, the 300 Spartans, Western culture, fighting against the evil, Near East Asian Persians who are coming, they're like Darth Vader in the Empire. And the Spartans are like
the
Luke
rebel
Skywalker.
army. Yeah, the rebel army.
Far outnumbered, almost outmatched, but they hold it down and save the day. But what Dan Carlin is trying to say is it's actually not really like that. You know what I mean?
Well, of course it's not.
Yeah, that's just how it's portrayed. By the time, the guy who attacks the Spartans in 300 is Xerxes. He's the son of Darius. He's he's the one who's the son of the shopkeeper. The one who made the Persian Empire so rich and
flavorful.
And savory. I don't know. It was just, that was a cool part, how the power exchanged hands there. Because Cyrus knew that every time a king dies, shit gets fucked up. No one just gets to be the next king. So he did the best he could to mitigate that problem. And he did a damn good job. Except this dude, Darius,
fucked it up.
Kind of fucked it up a little bit. But maybe he didn't. Maybe it did just go down exactly the way he says. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
It's impossible to predict the past. That's one of my favorite sayings.
Yeah, I dig it.
Dope.
I do want to circle back, though, and just say that this discussion that Nick was having is about Dan Carlin's hardcore history. Do recommend if you have any interest in the past. This guy does a great job of interpreting history, which, after all, as a historian, I can say that's what history is all about, is interpreting the facts. It's not necessarily some kind of new twist on anything. It's just you take what the information is, and then you interpret it. That's history for you.
And it's tough to know where to start. Yeah. Everything is so connected. It's a fucking 4-episode podcast, and each of them are 4 hours long. Because he starts talking about Leonidas and the 300 Spartans and the 1,000,000-man army of the Persians. But you got to understand who the Persians are and who the Spartans were at that point, who the Greeks were, how it all had worked out. It's fascinating.
It is interesting, I guess. I can see how you find it interesting.
I mean,
but that's it's a lot of time to devote to fucking dead people.
Well, but it's a huge important part of who we are. You just think of the logistics of moving a football stadium full of people over the sea and over huge amounts of land. How do you do that?
That's interesting.
Without it being a complete fucking disaster.
Well, that's true.
How do you
well, here's how you do it. You brainwash the people beforehand so that they're highly trained and then listen to your every command.
What does that look like? What you say? Just brainwash. You can't just snap your fingers, and there has to be a system.
I know. There's you raise them from wee babes and all that shit, and train them in an army.
Well, some of them, yeah. I mean, there's not everyone is in the military, although most of them are. There's other people who they're the shopkeepers, they're the merchants. Although another really interesting thing was that in Persian society, lying was like a capital crime. The two things they taught young boys in Persia how to do was to use a bow and not to lie. Those are the two things that they taught them. And when the Persian king Cyrus was talking to or with a representative, a liaison from Sparta, from Athens and Sparta and Thrace and all those places, because Greece was not one country. It was a bunch of warring city-states. He thought that markets, agoras is what they were called, places where you would just set up shop and try to haggle with people. Cyrus thought that was just a place where people went to lie to each other. Persians didn't do that. They thought it was weak to have places where you just set up shop and everyone just lies to each other to try to get the best price on this or that. But then he kind of skims out and so what did Persians do? How did they buy shit?
Well, you see, they had a store, and that store had a sticker with a price on it, and then you just paid that price.
Yeah.
Which is honestly how I prefer to shop.
Yeah.
I will say I'm super down with the whole culture that doesn't believe in lying.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind
it's
that.
A capital crime.
What's interesting to me about that is that, of course, now the remnants of the Persian Empire are in what is now modern-day Iran, which is supposedly our mortal enemies.
Is there anyone in Iran claiming to be what's left of the Persian Empire?
Yeah, all of them.
Man.
Do they have a king and shit?
No, they had a Shah of Iran, but the mullahs overthrew him in the revolution of 1979, you see. And the Shah himself had a dubious claim on power over the Iranian people. He was installed by the British and Americans in the 50s after we overthrew their democratically elected prime minister, Mossadegh, I forget his name now. But we overthrew their democratically elected prime minister in the 50s. The British were the main drivers, but Eisenhower gave a wink and a nod and let the British do it. Then we, with the British help, installed the Shah of Iran, And why did we do that?
Why did we overthrow their democratically elected government?
Because we thought
Oil?
that their prime minister was a little too soft on communism. He was a democratic socialist. And so, yeah.
So he
I'm
had to
sure
die.
glad we screwed that up for him.
Yeah. So we're
And
still...
now look at Iran today.
Yes, we're still dealing with the aftermath of that decision, as a matter of fact. So there's a lot of blowback when you, as an empire, which we are, decide that one of your vassal states isn't quite where you want them to be, and so you make an adjustment. We've been dealing with that now for 50 years. More than 50 years.
It's funny you say he had a dubious claim to power anyway, because that's usually how it goes. Like, just rallies everyone, galvanizes all the different peoples of a nation, and then, like, you could say is the legitimate ruler, but then, like, he dies or he gets sick or something, and then his goons are all just left around, and then some bullshittery happens, and then the next guy just isn't quite as good as the guy before him.
Generally speaking, the guy who is in power has one of two things going for him: a willingness to kill everyone around him, or powerful patrons who are willing to kill everyone around him. But generally speaking, when somebody ends up in power that you'd never expect, it's a degree of ruthlessness or a degree of complicity that you would not expect from that person.
Yeah, and that was said about Cyrus the Great, was that his one character flaw was that he was prone to unpredictable and uncontrollable bouts of cruelty, which was tempered by his generosity. The Persians, when they came through, they became such a big empire because they were relatively cool. If you had a democratically elected government way later on in the later years, they would let you do that as long as you just kept paying the taxes. As long as they said, hey, when we need troops, you send us troops. And as long as you did that, you could pretty much do whatever the fuck you want, relative to the Assyrians, who were just very cruel and would kill entire populations for the funsies, for the meme.
Yeah, for the lulls.
For the lulls, for the memes that you would carve on, styluses later.
Right. First memery.
Cruelty for the memery. Yeah.
That's right.
Very cool. Very interesting stuff. I always wonder, like, what the logistics are like. When someone says they led a campaign through the Near East down into Egypt with a massive army, usually, and Dan Carlin does a good job of continuing to tell you this, usually the numbers are, like, exaggerated a little bit. People see like 100,000 people, they think it's 1 million people. But still, even if it's half of what they say it is, 50,000 people. I mean, how do you keep that army moving for months and months through foreign lands? Which, I mean, obviously the answer is to pillage and loot and supply lines. But I would love to see what that looks like, how they fought.
Dude, all you got to do is rent a copy of Ben-Hur. That's it. It'll tell you everything you need to know. That's an old person's joke, but nevertheless, it'll tell you everything. It's a sword and sandals epic. The real issue with an army of that size is feeding them. And
yes,
of course, in those days, as you mentioned, up through the 1800s and into the 1900s even, looting the local populace was the preferred method to supply troops.
I'm less interested in the history of things, although I can see its value. So I listened to this podcast called It Could Happen Here, which is basically a what if machine on if America dissolved into civil war in the current day and age. And they talk a lot about supply lines and wage hypotheses on which states would join which union or whatever. And they focused a lot on California and how California would probably split into the North and South, and the North California had a lot of power over the supply lines of agriculture and water. And so I could see how that could be interesting from stuff that actually happened and how they would probably use that to apply to this what if scenario.
Yeah, because people say, okay, so he conquered this many tribes, this many peoples. They say that Persia in its heyday had 80 different kinds of peoples under its umbrella. But what does that mean he conquered? What does that look like? What did they do?
In those days, what that meant was I showed up in your primary capital city or in your regional headquarters with a bunch of guys with swords and spears, and I took everything that you had except enough for you to subsist. And I said, if you don't want me to take that too, then what you're going to need to do is acknowledge my lordship over you and send me this much grain and this many donkeys and this much livestock on an annual basis. And I'm going to be sending guys around to collect that. And if you don't pay up, things aren't going to go as well for you next time.
We'll be back tomorrow.
Exactly.
So basically, it was the mob.
Yes. I mean, it's organized violence. That's what it is. That's what the armed forces
what you're
has always
describing,
been.
taking everything except enough to subsist on, was really more the Assyrian gig. because they were the empire. They were the big baddie guys. And Persians were like, we're going to take a lot, but most of it, we promise continuity. The way you're living now isn't really going to change. We're just going to have some governors, some guys that we appointed here, maybe some troops in your garrison. Other than that, as long as you give us what we need, aka troops or a navy if we need it, when it came to Phoenix, because Persians didn't really build their own shit. They just took the best shit in the world and then appropriated it as needed.
So you're talking about the Phoenicians.
Yes.
I understand why you would think they came from Phoenix, but Phoenix, as you know, it's landlocked state. There's no navy in Phoenix.
I thought when he says Phoenicians, he's referring, you know how like Georgia is a country, but also a state?
Yes.
I thought that Phoenix was also
As far as I know, there was never
in ancient times.
No, there was never any city called Phoenix, but there were mariners called Phoenicians.
Oh, well, the more you know. I thought that was just another Greek city that they just took, like Athens or Sparta.
Phoenix. Yeah. I mean, it's a reasonable thing
That's not out of the realm of possibility.
It isn't at all. It's just that that's not the case. So this is the value of actually going to college. They'll teach you that shit in college.
I didn't learn that shit in college.
Why would I need to go to college when you just told me?
That's
Gotcha.
touche. You've got me there, my friend.
Saved a lot of money by you just telling me that.
Like, I don't think I took any history.
Well, you're a computer engineer. They didn't have the hit. I'm
I'm sure you
surprised.
took history in the
Yeah,
first
they
year or
might have
two.
had you take one world history class as a prereq. What do they call those?
Gen
Just
Ed.
core,
Gen Ed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I took one world history class.
I liked my world history class. It was
I don't fucking-
interesting. That stuff interests me.
You are like Dad in that way.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I don't know why. Because nowadays we have radios and internet, like we can communicate long distances and we have all these vehicles and stuff, which is impressive in its own right. But to manage as a general, even a 20,000 man army with no radios, no vehicles, just flesh and blood creatures and bronze and steel, that's it. That interests me. I want to know how that is done.
With a great deal of effort, I can tell you that. No, the real campaign that I have experience with is in Afghanistan. Think about the supply lines to get, at the time, 100,000 U.S. troops into, fed, and equipped in Afghanistan, 7,000 miles away from the United States. Imagine the logistics that went into that. And still go into it to this day, 19 years later. Unbelievable.
And you got planes and shit to fly them on over, that doesn't automatically make it easy, but just for your capital to be 600 miles away and you're on foot, an army only moves as fast as its slowest soldier. So even if you have horses, you have cavalry, you can't just leave the infantry behind. So just to have these labor groups, entire populations would be called upon to maintain the roads so that these fucking huge 100,000 man armies could march across huge tracts of land.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. It really is what the ancients were able to accomplish with zero technology that we would recognize as technology. But in those days, you know what the major technology was?
What?
Roads. You said it yourself. That was a major technology.
Infrastructure.
That's one of the reasons the Romans were so successful. Everywhere they went, they built roads to facilitate the transportation and movement of their legions. Really effective.
That's what my world history professor in college said. He said before cars were invented, the sole and only purpose of roads was to transport armies.
Well, and supplies.
To feed the armies, really, though.
Also true. You had to move the materiel on something. Required roads. Still is that way today, as a matter of fact. That's one of the reasons why Eisenhower built the largest system of interstates anywhere in the world right here in the United States. Thanks, Ike.
I do think about that a lot.
Of course, he
What?
did also overthrow the democratically elected government of Iran. So bad on you, Ike.
And also, who knows who else?
Well, Guatemala. He also did that. He gave the stamp
Also
of
gave
approval.
Guatemala a nudge over the edge.
He did. And he also approved the invasion of Cuba, which Kennedy tried to go ahead and execute in the famous Bay of Pigs fiasco. That was actually approved by Eisenhower. And then Kennedy came in, took a look at it, said, looks good. Let's go for it. Disaster.
My father was there.
At the Bay of Pigs?
Yes.
He was at the Bay of Pigs
He was on a ship in the region.
at the time that the
At
Bay
the
of Pigs.
time,
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. So he wasn't actually with the guerrillas who were being dropped off on Cuba.
No, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
That
but
would have
no.
been a bloodbath. You might not be here today if that were the case.
That is true. They were all basically arrested or killed.
Or arrested, then killed. But you know what? Last thing. For all the great that the Persians were at the time, the one people they just could not fucking get, those goddamn Mongolians. They just couldn't get them. You know why? Well, they weren't Mongolians
Nomad?
You know, the way the Persians would do it is like the Blob movie in the 50s, as Dan Carlin says, they just slowly kept expanding. And if you ran away from them, they would just take your city. They would take your shit.
Oh, but they didn't have cities.
They didn't have cities. There was no land to conquer. There was nothing. And so you would lead, as I say, your supply lines get longer and longer. You're getting farther and farther away from home, chasing these fucking Scythians and the Massachetae. There were these giant super colonies of nomadic Asian steppe people, which eventually under Genghis Khan got galvanized into the Mongol horde. But before that, they were just a bunch of natives on horses who were second to none with their horsery and archery.
I like horsery.
Yeah, equestrian skill set. But they would just do the old scorched earth technique and just keep running. And this was Darius, who was trying to get a hold of the Scythians and bring them underneath his appropriation of armies. And Darius is like, look, why don't you just stop running and fight me? And basically the Scythian king's response was, we're not running. We're doing what we always do. We're moving around. If we want to fight you, we'll turn around and fucking fight you. You're very far away from home. You need to rethink what you want here, because we know you're getting hungry. We know you're getting thirsty. A lot of you are dying and shit, and they never could get them. They just gave up and went home.
That's the advantage of mobility. You can't beat mobility for keeping away from somebody, especially when you're talking about ground combat between two armies. Hard to beat someone you can't catch.
The good thing about being nomads is that no one can capture your shit because you're constantly moving. But the bad thing is you're constantly moving.
And it's so inconvenient. Have you ever tried to actually get movers? Jesus Christ. I mean, then you got to schedule them, then they show up. They're very low paid. They're tend to be
No,
nice people.
I've never done that.
Oh, my God.
I am the mover.
Yeah.
I did play tag when I was a kid, but I would only run in short bursts and then I'd get bored and out of breath. So I imagine it's much the same.
Moving?
Catching the movers, playing tag.
Oh, I see. Catching the people who are moving. Sorry, I was still on the moving furniture bit.
Because they're all on horses. Sure, you got some guys on horses, but you need the guys with the spears and the bows and arrows there too. If you just show up with just the horsemen to the fucking horde of... They were referred to as the Umanmanda, which is translated to English as the horde from who knows where.
I like that.
That's actually the name of this podcast, The Horde from Who Knows Where. Should be, anyway.
Interesting stuff. Been listening to a lot of it, as you could probably deduce.
Yes, fascinating. Especially the part where these Scythians go get moving trucks. Do you think they used U-Haul, or did they go ahead with Mayflower, some name brand, do you think? I'm still on that bit. I don't give a fuck what
That was
any
a car
say.
crash. That was just not good.
It was great.
McDonald's. More than 30,000 restaurants worldwide and growing, with billions and billions served. It's the biggest restaurant chain in the world, and we've used this success to amass the world's largest standing army, a 500-ship blue water navy, a robust intelligence agency, a constellation of surveillance satellites, and the most advanced hypersonic and directed energy weapons ever produced. What started off as a boardroom joke has turned into a major threat to the security of the most powerful nations on Earth. Of course, great power comes with a great responsibility to bring the great taste of McDonald's to every McCitizen of McEarth. For now, dining at McDonald's will remain optional, but the only way to obtain full McCitizenship is through a minimum 3-year term of service in General Ronald McDonald's Armed Forces. So get on down to your local McDonald's recruiting kiosk, enjoy one of our delicious value meals, and sign up for the fast food adventure of a lifetime.
Corporate clients with difficult government relations problems should contact us about affordable government replacement options. Genocide not included.
What I wanted to talk about in addition to, I actually had no idea we'd talk for a half hour about the Scythians and the Persians and the Greeks and whatnot.
Nerds.
No one ever expects the Spanish Inquisition.
No one ever expects a discussion of the Peloponnesian Wars and their aftermath, but yet sometimes it just breaks out. Sometimes a discussion of the war between Sparta and the city-state of Athens, that happens sometimes when you're just sitting around. You can't predict it. And then there it is, much like what happened in the first half of this podcast. But moving on, one of the things that Elsie and I did this week is we watched The Family Next Door, an American murder story. And that thing was creepy, dog.
Yeah, I watched the trailer. So that guy was trying to help the police and shit, right? And he had done it all along, but he was giving all these public statements oh, I just want him to be found and shit, right? Is that the case?
That's the case. That's the guy. And what a creep.
But if you hear
Yeah.
Guy tell it, because your Uncle Guy lived in the same town as this individual, he said that the cops were onto him from day one, and they were putting him up to having to speak publicly all the time about it so that they could have all this footage of him and just his behaviors about it.
Oh, they knew he was up to some shit and was just trying to get him to slip up on live TV.
Yeah.
Well, they also knew because the very day of the murders, right? The cops are there. Actually, he shows up at the house, the murderer does, Chris Watts, who is the husband of Shannon Watt, and their 2 children. He killed all of them, by the way. He killed Shannon, killed the 2 kids, no question about that. In fact, he subsequently confessed to the whole crime. But the day of the murders, the morning of, because they happen around, let's
Did he
just say-
shoot him?
No, he strangled them.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Wait, he strangled the wife and threw the daughters in a well.
Well, but he strangled them first. And it wasn't in a well, it was in an oil container, a big oil storage unit.
I didn't know what it was called, so I just said a well. But I don't...
An oil well.
Yes.
How do you
How do you...
crazy.
Yeah, first you
Strangling your kids? Your kids are all looking at you while the fucking life's leaving their eyes and shit? That is so crazy.
No, he put
So
a blanket
creepy.
over their head first.
Oh, he put
That way you can't.
Yeah, because he was a
look
fucking
at it.
coward. Because he couldn't do it.
Well, the thing
He
is
did
that...
do it.
So here was his motivation, actually. His motivation was he got this younger, hotter girlfriend. And so, as a result, he killed his wife and both kids.
She sucked that dick real good.
Yeah, I hope she did.
And she looked a lot like the wife, which was weird.
No, I mean, he has a type.
So
It's
weird.
understandable.
How do you just, man, like, it makes you wonder, like, did this guy always his whole life know that he was capable of doing that? Do you just wake up one day and decide, yeah, I'm gonna murder my wife and children? You would think that that's like a fixed personality trait. If you possess that, it's in you no matter what. I hope that's the case.
You do hope that's the case. Although I will say this, I do have some experience in this regard. Not in murder,
Good, thank you.
but I have plenty of experience in, gee, this relationship isn't working out for me. And I've never been one to murder any ex-spouse or any ex. It does not come into your head if you are even a relatively normal person. And I don't think I even qualify there as relatively normal. But let's just say that I'm not overtly pathological. Can we go with that? And so it doesn't come into my head when things are going wrong in a relationship to murder the other partner. That just doesn't come into your head, does it?
There's a
it?
first time
Especially
for everything.
to strangle them. That's like real personal.
So you'd be okay with shooting them from a distance? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, of course not. I wouldn't be okay with that. When you shoot someone, when you got a gun, it's like it's over in a second. There's not a lot of time for you to, aside from all the time leading up to it. Like when you got the gun pointed at someone, it's just point and click and it's over. When you strangle someone, you got like a good, 5 minutes. You're just looking into their eyes, waiting for them to die. There's more time for you to be like, what am I doing? Yeah, like, what am I doing here? Maybe this isn't such a good idea. You don't have the time to think that in the time a bullet flies out of a barrel and into someone's head. You do have the time to think that when your fingers are wrapped around their neck for 5.5 minutes.
I bet
Not
at
sure.
some point, though, you realize, like, at the very least, if I let this person live, I'm going to have a restraining order and go to jail anyway. So I might have a
True.
better chance of hiding the body after the fact.
True. There comes a point of no return where you're like, I'm doing time if this bitch survives.
Sometimes things just kind of get out of hand.
But the kids too.
But not that
Couldn't
neck.
she just lie about the kids or lie to the kids about the mom?
No.
Mom went to Disneyland or some shit. You
Well,
want to go
so-
stay with grandma for a little while.
Here's the problem, and here's how I think it went down. So very clearly, there's discussion where the oldest of the little girls, which I think she was only like 4, comes in and sees him with his arm still around the mom's neck. And it's like, what's wrong with mom? Like, what are you doing to mom? So I think at that point, it wasn't so much trying to get rid of the daughters to go live his life as it was, oh my God, I've got this witness now. She's going to speak against me. I honestly think that's what it was.
Yeah.
In the moment
okay.
of panic of, oh my God, I just killed someone. And oh my God, now my kid just saw it. She's going to rat me out. So you got to go.
You would think that you're like, oh my God, the kid just saw it. Then you're like, okay, the jig's up. Like, I should just go turn myself in. Not, okay, let's kill the kid too.
Yeah, well, the kid had it coming for walking in on him, obviously.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, for what she done to Ned. But still, it's whatever. I'm not going to try to get inside the mind. It's just fucked up. You hope that one day you don't wake up and are able to justify doing that.
Well,
Like, what is it? Is it something that always was in him? Or is it something that snaps when you turn a certain age?
I don't think age has anything to do
Yeah,
with it.
I don't think so.
Elsie certainly hopes not, because I'm not getting any younger.
So you saying that kid deserves it for walking in, that's one of the crazy things is that all these people on social media who are following it were having their own debates about like whether or not the woman fucking deserved it. Oh, well, she was so bossy and like she was such a controlling bitch. Oh, I'm sorry. That means you
Then
should
leave.
die. Yeah.
Yeah. Run away. Skip town. Do it crazy like. No one's got to die.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, Elsie can be a little bossy, but that's still not grounds to murder you, hun.
Yeah,
Well,
like
trust
if
me.
someone is so bossy that you want to do something drastic, do 1950 style dad ran away drastic. Just run away and start a new identity. Don't kill nobody.
Or even better, just kill yourself.
Yeah, or kill yourself. That was my just fucking kill yourself then. You need to kill somebody. You can't help it. Just kill your fucking self.
Yeah, so here's confession time. Confession time is that this is why divorce exists. Divorce exists because there are just times in a person's life when it's like, shall I kill them, kill myself, or get divorced? Divorce seems better.
Is this the episode where you're telling me something? Am I supposed to figure this out?
No, you're not supposed to. I'll just tell you. Trust me.
You're not
He's
supposed to
got-
figure anything out until it's far too late.
No, he
Yeah,
has
you're
the
gonna-
experience, you
Until
know?
his hands
Yeah.
are tightly gripped around your
No.
windpipe.
He knows how to say, hey, I'm gone. We're done. So don't worry about it.
Does he though?
He knows how to say that with a garrote.
Right. Speaking of murder weapons, though, we did get a loner 45 pistol from a friend of mine.
A loner? How does that work?
Well, how it works is that this pistol, which is a 45 caliber handgun, it's a Taurus. It's a heck of a nice handgun. But it so happens that the previous owner had it painted or stained in the American flag. So it's this 45 with this American flag wrapper. And so
Like vinyl wrap.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, like Jamberry for your nails, but it was for his handgun.
Yeah.
something like that. So this guy's
Something for
wife
every gender.
hates this gun now because it is
Americanized.
Yes, because it's hideous to her. And so the guy said, well, look, you're going to the range tomorrow. Why don't you fire it? And if you like it, you can make me an offer on it. So we went to the range today, and Elsie, you can take up the story from here.
I don't know why I have to pick up the story from here. It's not really a story. They just were so busy that it was like a 4-hour wait, which we were not into.
No, it was a 4-hour wait.
4-hour wait to
Yeah.
get on
Yeah.
the range.
Yeah, man. This place was
Fuck.
packed. I was shocked when we rolled up to this place. There was barely any parking in the parking lot. This place was busier than Walmart on the day after Thanksgiving. I'm telling you, man, this thing was packed out. People are ready to get their armed on, to your earlier point, Sarah, where you're listening to a podcast about the Civil War in America coming up. Is that true? Is that what you're listening to?
I have listened to it in the past. I have not listened to it recently because it freaks me out. So
Right?
it's like a 12 episode thing, and they've done a couple seasons. So I'll listen to like one or two at a time and be like, okay, I'm done now. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand that. And it's a fact that we do have some Civil War-y type shit happening. Did you see that in Michigan, they arrested 10 men
Holy shit, yeah.
who were part of a plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer and put her on trial,
The
presumably.
lockup queen.
That's
Yeah,
big trouble.
yeah.
You're in big, big trouble.
Oh, they are in big trouble, that's for sure. And the idea was that they were going to try her and then administer some sort of rough justice, which
Yeah,
presumably,
like what? So what was their end game there? How did they think that was? They would all just ride off into the sunset of
Trump
Michigan?
endorsed it. I mean, not in so many words, but he didn't like this governor. And so, yeah, they thought that, oh, well, the president will pardon me or some shit. Who knows?
Well, one thing's for sure. If you saw the pictures of all these guys, and I don't know if you did, but if you saw
I
them-
did.
you did see the pictures of all these guys. Where'd
I
you
did
see
not. So continue with your explanation.
Yeah.
Well, they're all young,
Why?
white neckbeards. That's what they are.
Yeah.
They're neckbeards.
But 2 of them were former Marines.
So what does that mean?
Nothing, just that they had military training and
Yeah, the general colloquial vision of a neckbeard is a guy who never leaves his mother's basement,
right.
fat as shit,
I mean, they weren't looking great, but they had gone through
at least basic training.
right.
2 of them had, right?
Two.
Right.
of
It was
them.
2 out of 4, which is enough to organize the rest
That's
of them.
so fucking dumb. What do you think you're going to change the world? Like the world's going to
No.
be a better place now? Like
Maybe, but you know what you are going to do? You're going to make that bitch pay.
Then what are you going to do after that? You're just going to go to the movies? Like,
Well, no, you'll
everything's all
probably,
good?
you'll probably jerk off over her fucking corpse or something.
Probably, yeah.
Get that
but
hate boner.
then what? Then what happens after?
They don't think that far ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
They're going to be heroes.
That's exactly right. Is they will be heroes in the new world order.
They're going to start the new proper civil war, and everything's going to be the way God intended by the time this civil war would be over, because theoretically they would win, and of course they are right and the rest of us are wrong.
how about that?
Here's what I liked. What I liked was all of the names on Reddit that people came up with these guys. And the names include the Gravy Seals instead of the Navy Seals. I like that.
Love.
They also came up with methamphetamines. I liked that.
That
Nice.
one's really good too.
Right? The insurgency instead of insurgency. Insurgency.
Okay, all
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
yeah,
as good
yeah.
as Gravy Seals, but
I do like gravy seals.
methamphetamines. Those two are real bangers right
Yeah,
there.
They are. And how about Al-Qaeda? I like that one.
Wow, these guys are on fire.
Yeah,
That would be
thanks,
better
Reddit.
if they were Southern.
Right. And then jihadis instead of jihadis,
Mhm.
jihadis, yeah. And then vanilla ISIS, which I kind of like because, they're
That
all
one's
white.
good.
Yeah,
I like
they're
that
all
one.
good. Right. And Al Cracker instead of Al Qaeda. I like that too. Then this is another one I like. Meal Team 6.
Meal Team Six. It's good.
Yeah, I like that.
that.
Hmm. And then Walmarters, martyrs. I like that.
That one's a stretch.
It is. The Green Buffets. I like that too.
Yeah.
That one's good.
Yeah. And then I guess that's really about it.
Oh, well,
There's
that was
some bangers in
amusing.
there, yeah.
I like it. I mean, there's some other ones. Oh, this is one I liked. The Talibangelicals. I kind of like that one.
Talibangelicals.
Right. Or the Talibanjo, if you want to shorten it, too. That's all right, too. So there you go. White terrorists in the United States. They're listed, right-wing extremists, as the number one terrorist threat in the United States. And now you see why. Because there are people out there who are planning this shit and are trying to execute it. And that is why it is so important that we have federal and state law enforcement who are on the case and are doing a good job. I'm not for people who want to get rid of law enforcement.
You don't need to abolish the police. You just need to train them better. That's all. They need better training and more psychiatric screening. That's what they need.
Nick, that is the most moderate thing I've ever heard you say about the police.
I mean,
true.
fuck them, but like, honestly, it's an abuse of power. You get power, people abuse it. That's a people thing. That's not really a police thing. People need to get better. And the laws need to be a little less draconian about certain things. If certain things weren't illegal, you wouldn't have to worry. If really all that was illegal was actually things that should be illegal, then there would be nothing to worry about from the police.
And to speak to your point, the whole point of defund the police is not to get rid of police. It's to take some of their money and allocate it to services that will better serve the public, such
Yeah.
as mental health,
Yeah.
and have the right people respond to the right kind of crises.
They
instead
don't
of
need
responding.
military grade equipment.
Right, exactly.
The military does. If we need to bring in guys with military grade equipment, why
Then
don't we just
call
go
the
ahead and-
National
Yeah,
Guard.
we-
That's
let's
why
just-
they're there.
Let's use the military. We don't need the police to have military grade equipment because they don't have military grade training. Full stop.
Noah has had military grade training. Noah, what is your thought about these Michigan militia assholes?
They're Michigan militia assholes. What do you mean? I mean, that's it. Let me just add from last episode, since I wasn't there, that Sum 41 is a Canadian treasure, and I'm upset that people don't.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
No,
Fuck you
it's
and
fucking
fuck
a
Sum
great
41.
band.
So you said Sum 41's a great band, and Elsie disagrees.
All of us disagree. Wait,
Yeah.
no, wait, no. Wait.
See, I win.
Freudian slip. No. If we are on Noah's side. Noah's on our side.
I mean,
Start our own
it's
militia.
fine. It's fine. You all have horrible taste. It's fine.
Horrible taste.
This is what I remember
Wish
about...
I knew who you listened to so I could shit all over them, but I don't.
Ha
I
ha.
don't
probably
know.
probably something like Neil Young or Nickelback or
Oh,
some other-
God.
No, she compared Sum 41 to Nickelback last time. It was pure heresy. It was unacceptable.
Okay, confession time though. I only really give a shit about Chuck.
Yeah, me too. That's the only album I ever listened to by them because that was the only one you had. So,
And I also listened to that album because you
But it
had
was a
it.
good
Sarah.
album.
I did enjoy it. Yes, I liked Chuck by Sum 41, I have to admit. What do you got against Sum 41, Elsie?
They're just not good. I don't have anything against them. I mean, they're fine. I'm sure they're wonderful people. I hope you all have good lives, make shitloads of money, but I think you're a shit band.
are they
Okay.
still together?
Doubt it.
Noah knows.
Noah?
I think they're still together. I mean, they released an album like, what, 2015, 2017? I'm pretty sure they're still releasing music.
Let's look this shit up.
There's a whole bit about is someone dead or Canadian? Like Neil Young, for example. Is he dead or Canadian?
Both.
Right. Doesn't have to be either or. But if you want to shit on a band, shit on the Lumineers. That's Elsie's favorite.
It's not my favorite, but I like them, and you can shit on them, and I don't care.
I will listen to them just so I can have enough to shit on them with. I need some ammunition here.
They're very hipster.
Oh, super hipster. Actually, they're quite good. We saw them. She's seen them separately, but she and I saw them when they opened up for U2 about 4 years ago. Great band. Of course, U2 was outstanding in concert. That's why they're the best and biggest band in the world. Still, more than 30 years. Oh, yeah. I mean, in terms of bringing in money at concerts, they're right up there with the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, man.
All I know about U2 and Bono is what I've seen on South Park, to be honest, which is not very good.
And isn't that all you need to know? I think it is.
I mean, yeah, it makes me not like U2. I got to be honest.
To bring it back to Sum 41, though, they are still together and putting out music. The last album they put out was in 2019.
Oh, okay. How about that? How about that?
And how about none of us have heard it? So
Right.
No,
So
but I
how good
am
are
putting
they?
it into my queue. So
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's impressive.
That's
well
commitment.
Done. Yeah, it sure is. So the other news that I have, if you will, and I do have some news, is that it turns out that I'm 100% permanently and totally disabled.
for your vertigo,
For a whole host of reasons. In fact, I'm 240% disabled if you add it all up.
nice.
What the
That's
fuck?
good for the VA, though,
What are
isn't
those
it?
percentages? How do you get percentages of disabled?
We're talking about military
How
disability,
is
right?
someone 240% disabled?
I think 100% is mental disability, and the other 140% is the rest of it, right?
Yes.
The other 140% is dad's personality.
100%
Oh, okay.
is previously undiagnosed autism, and the other 140% is now diagnosed autism.
It's entirely right. I mean, who can say exactly why it is that I'm permanently and totally disabled? But clearly I am. One look at me, just a single conversation with me, will basically convince anybody that I'm totally unemployable for all time.
True.
But we are, just to be clear, talking about military disability.
Yeah. As opposed to what?
Other disabilities?
You get money for it, is my point.
What do you mean I get money for it?
Don't you get money and services for being a disabled veteran?
Yes, I do. I
There you
guess.
go.
I don't know. I don't have.
Congratulations on being 240%. I hope that increases your payout.
Yeah. Why else would there be a reason to even designate disability?
I don't know why you're being so shifty about this. You brought it up, bro.
You brought it up. Answer the questions.
What was the question?
You're getting money for this, right? What do you mean I'm getting money for this? No, of course not. I just go down to the disability place. They tell me I'm disabled, and I go home with a lollipop.
That's the disability that's kicking in.
I go down to the disability place in my overalls and propeller hat, and they let me leave with a lollipop. That's it. That's all I do.
He became a statistic. That's all that matters.
They say they give me a little sticker on my overalls that says I'm 240% disabled, and that's what I do one Thursday every month.
That's exactly right. Well, you've gotten it exactly. But it just goes to show you that I don't know what it goes to show you. I'm not sure what the punchline is. I'm really not. I think you just had it. Well done.
Thanks.
Thanks. Now, I have something to talk about here.
Yes.
It's a little bit dark, but we all know about it. We all know about the
Look,
Uyghurs.
so long as it's not fucking kids to death, I'm down. Let's go.
Well,
yeah,
I mean-
we're even okay with a husband strangling his wife and kids to death. We can talk about that. It's just the fucking of the kids to death that we have an issue with.
Well, you know, I mean,
Everybody-
it happens, though. You shouldn't obscure the truth.
We're not obscuring, but we are establishing
Okay, there is
boundaries.
no kid fucking here. Can we just
Okay,
move
yeah,
past
yeah,
the kid
that's-
fucking?
I'm just saying
For
that's-
all the hatred of the kid fucking, everyone else likes to bring it up quite a bit.
We have to establish boundaries, Nick, and I appreciate you respecting them.
Boundary established.
Okay.
Anyway, so there's these concentration camps in China, right?
Yes, for the Uyghurs.
For the Uyghurs who are now. Do you know?
They're Muslims, right?
Yes, they're a Muslim.
Chinese Muslims.
They're
But
Chinese Muslims.
Which, I mean, look, there should be freedom of religion and everything, but if it's like either be a Muslim and go to a concentration camp or just say you're not a Muslim, I would just totally just say I'm not a Muslim. Whatever. It's not the point. Point is, they also put political prisoners in there too, right?
Okay.
Do they? Wouldn't they? Let's just assume they do. I mean, why wouldn't they?
They might have a special place for them.
Yeah, they get their own camps.
Yeah, a different re-education camp. But I saw a video of a guy who got released from one of the re-education camps, and he died a week later after the video, but he was so skinny, these people had to carry him. He was basically already dead, but you know what it looked like to me? He looked like a prisoner of Auschwitz. So this horrible, horrible thing that we had to get involved in World War II, to stop the atrocious Nazis from doing this to these Jewish people. It's still happening. My question to you guys is like, what is the morally right thing to do with this information as a nation?
Before I answer that, I have a question. Dad, is that why we got involved in World War II?
I mean,
No.
I mean, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. That's why we got involved, right?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, Germany declared war on the United States before the United States declared war on Germany, right?
Also true. Very,
Yeah.
very true, as a matter of fact.
And we were like,
So-
we don't care. We're not going over there. You guys in Europe handle your shit. And then Japan went ahead and bombed Pearl Harbor. We're like, okay, we're coming then.
Well, so there's the reign of my answer here is that we don't give a shit about concentration camps. In World War II, we erected our own
I guess that's-
internment camps.
Well, they were
for-
internment camps.
It
yeah.
doesn't matter. It could have very easily escalated to concentration camps.
It matters a little bit, but
Morally-
I do see what you're saying. Yes.
Well, you know, if they had gone on longer, you said earlier in the episode, people with power abuse that power. Well, who the fuck is running the internment camps? Have they been psychologically vetted?
Wow.
Anyway, the point is that we morally, as a society, do not give a shit about concentration camps unless it affects us personally. It's the same shit with coronavirus. We're just selfish individuals.
Yep.
True. And I
Perfectly
agree.
stated.
I don't disagree.
I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I think it's individual, right? But I think that collectively, as a nation, certainly the nation that I remember as America being, we do care about concentration camps. We do care about crimes against humanity. And we established the United Nations in part to address these kinds of issues when they arise. Now, it's unfortunate that the perpetrator in this case, the People's Republic of China, has a permanent seat on the Security Council of the United Nations. So naturally, there's nothing that can be done at the United Nations about this Chinese atrocity because China would simply veto any resolution that would come up against it. So the United Nations is impotent against...
So what's the point of the United Nations at all? You say we as a people care about concentration camps, and we do. But when Sarah was saying we, I think she was referring to the guys who make the decisions about whether or not we're going to do something about it.
For sure.
You're making a very strong pro-Trump argument right now because the Trump administration has, in fact, taken on the People's Republic of China in very real and significant ways, in ways that no other administration has. That's no bullshit. Now, you know I'm not a Trump lover. In fact, the reverse. But nevertheless, you got to give the guy credit where credit is due. And he has hurt China economically through these sanctions. Now, they've hurt us too. This trade war, that's been a thing that has hurt both parties, but it has certainly not been a positive for China. And then he has also really stepped up his rhetoric and the military activity that we are taking to ensure freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. Trump has been no patsy when it comes to China. That's the truth.
Okay, you said I was making a Trump argument and then proceeded to make a Trump argument yourself.
Yes.
They built off each other. Well, and that's what he said, is that he's not a,
But also, these aren't answers to my questions. The answer to my question is, what should we do morally about this? If you could just decide what America does about this, what would you do? Because you can't just go and invade China. Oops, nuclear war. So what do you do?
One
you
would
start by kicking him off the UN Council?
So then it's still business as usual.
Not necessarily. If they're not there so that they can't veto the thing, then the UN can start to do something about it.
How in the world will China agree to be kicked off of the UN Security Council? They can veto any such resolution.
How is China going to agree to any sort of resolution to the Uyghur camps? They're not.
I already said that.
Right. So I'm saying
So
that
why couldn't the whole, if it's literally the entirety of the UN being like, hey, China, you're gone, buddy. And they're like, no, we veto this. But then the entirety of the UN is like, yeah, you can't do that anymore because you're not on this council anymore.
Well, that'll never happen because China, believe it or not, does have allies. And so as a result, they'll find some friendly countries or will pay some friendly countries to go ahead and stick with them. This is the whole issue where what do you do when a rising superpower has concentration camps for an ethnic or religious minority that they don't like? You have to talk about it all the time, continue to point it out. And, oh, by the way, it helps if your own behavior as a country is morally consistent. So, for example, we probably shouldn't put children in cages and separate them from their mothers and not keep records to reunite them.
Coordinate mass hysterectomies.
Yep.
Hang on now. I actually have done some research on that, and that's a highly questionable assertion. as to whether or not there have been mass hysterectomies. Based on my research, it looks like there might have been one doctor who performed a handful of unauthorized hysterectomies. It's not exactly...
Just a handful. It's
well,
fine.
We're talking about, in the grand scheme of things, it does appear to me more of a one bad apple situation versus a systemic problem. And that is a difference. So
one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. You know, that's the whole saying. A lot of people like to only take the first half of a saying and apply it. One bad apple spoils the whole bunch. One mass hysterectomy doctor can breed other hysterectomy doctors.
He's going to have a hard time breeding them if he's done hysterectomies.
That's a good point right there. Nevertheless, our own behavior should live up to our own best values if we are out on the world stage saying, hey, you're not doing the right thing. If we're telling other countries that they're not doing the right thing, let's make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Which we're not.
Have we ever?
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right. You know, I saw well, I didn't watch the documentary, but my buddy Raleigh, who has a lot of insane theories, and this is what I thought, just another one, but like the UN soldiers they have working for the UN do
I
a lot
didn't know
of...
that was a thing, but okay.
Do they not?
There is a UN peacekeeping force. When authorized, it operates in various troubled regions based on agreement of all parties. Typically, it's part of a peace process that will include UN observers or a UN multinational force that helps enforce the terms of the peace agreement.
Right. So Raleigh was telling me about UN peacekeepers there's this island off the coast of Africa, but it's kind of like this middle ground between these two different countries. There's this village that lives on this island, and each of these two countries in Africa want this island, and they're constantly fighting over it, and the people living on the island are getting fucked because they're in between all this fighting, and these people are like, we just want to live on this fucking island and fish and do our thing.
Are we talking about Madagascar? Is that what we're talking about?
Maybe it's Madagascar. I think I would remember it being Madagascar. But,
just because of the Disney movie?
It sounds like it's a small island.
Look, the point is the UN showed up,
Right.
and people were asking them how they like it now that the UN is here, and they were like, oh, yeah, it's been great. I mean, the fighting has stopped, but they have been raping a lot of our children and women. That's not really that great. And there's this whole documentary about how the UN and its peacekeepers have a problem not raping people. They got a real problem with that. There's mass reports of them doing horrible, terrible things to the populations in which they're keeping the peace. So the UN as a whole, already impotent as it is, kind of seems like it's not good, not that great.
Well, those incidents have happened in a variety of spots. You got to keep in mind that the quality of a UN peacekeeping force is only as good as the soldiers that are assigned to it from various donor countries. Oftentimes, a UN peacekeeping force will consist of the troops from places like Pakistan and Bangladesh and other places where, for example, the professionalism and training may not be the same as it is, for example, in the United States or NATO.
Right, but still, that doesn't change the fact that makes it so that the UN literally, in theory and in practice, is kind of a joke, a bad joke.
But that's true of any fucking army in the world.
I'm not specifically referring to the army. I just mean the organization itself.
But my point is that just because there are people in the peacekeeping army that are raping people, that happens universally.
Well,
that doesn't
yeah.
mean that the whole organization needs to be burnt to the ground and rebuilt.
Kind of it does.
Well, I'm not saying that you can't fix it. I'm just saying that issue is a bigger issue than just that of the peacekeeping corps or peacekeeping army.
It's a systemic problem within the UN.
Worldwide. It's not just within the UN.
Not just within the UN, but it's also not in the UN either.
Yeah, all right.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, hang on. Now, I will tell you that the U.S. Armed Forces, let me speak up for the U.S. Armed Forces, being a retiree from them, we generally don't have a problem with rape of natives. Now, I say that there's been several incidents in Okinawa in which that has been an issue. But the bottom line is that the United States spends an enormous amount of time and effort trying to keep, really, the main focus is on trying to keep soldiers and airmen and Marines and sailors from raping one another. But nevertheless, we have a whole thing.
Good.
Yeah, well, we have a whole thing where we don't want you to rape the natives either.
Okay, you know what? It shouldn't just be the natives or each other. It should be at all, you know? That should be the goal.
Well, yeah, but you have to have specific programs before you can get to the,
overall.
overall.
We just ixnay rape on the whole instead of just each other or just the natives.
Well, yeah, I mean, that goes without saying, one would think, although we do kind of have to train for that too. Yeah, you're right. But your point is interesting, Nick, and that is that there are many who believe that the United Nations has outlived its usefulness. And that's one of the reasons why the United States whines and complains about paying its dues to the UN, despite the fact that the headquarters building is here in New York City.
Move it to China.
Yeah, move it to China. Good
Actually,
idea.
the UN is not in the United States. The building they have has actually been granted to them by the city of New York and is not necessarily U.S. property. That's the thing we learned when I went with Brad for an 8th grade trip.
Okay, sure. To the
interesting.
It's like a little
Yeah.
embassy for
It's
the
an-
UN.
Yes.
Just like D.C. isn't a state, this square
Right.
footage of property is not a country.
It's not a country?
It's not
It's
within
a
a
something,
country.
but it's
Or-
it's its own thing.
It's not the United
It's not
States,
the United
It's
States.
its own pocket dimension within the United
Yes.
States.
Yes.
That, I think, is a good description of it for sure. However, all of that said, the UN does do some good things. World Food Program, UNESCO, United Nations, I forget what UNESCO, education, something. They do some good things. When I say they is us. And the reality is that at the time that it was founded, there were people who were looking ahead to a world government because it was thought, particularly with the advent of nuclear weapons, World War II was so destructive. And of course, 75 years later, there are very few now alive who remember. But World War II was so destructive that it was thought that there might need to be some kind of global governmental organization to help prevent future conflicts from spiraling out of control in the way World War II did. Particularly since World War II, as we all know, it's right in the number, came right after World War I, which everybody thought was going to be the war to end all wars. Point here
I
is
bet there's been a lot of people throughout history who thought this war is going to be the war to end all wars.
it's happened a few times. To this point, it's never been true. Although nuclear weapons have meant that there has been no large-scale conflagration like World War II since the end of World War II. Thanks, nuclear weapons.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like everyone's just got a gun on each other.
It's like that Spider-Man gif where they're all pointing at each other, but instead they're all nuclear warheads.
Instead of fingers, it's nuclear warheads.
Yeah.
It's true. So if you want to have any sort of existential dread, you're not feeling like a pandemic is enough. You're not feeling like
The grinding day-to-day of just adulthood in general is enough.
living in a dystopian future that you're enjoying right now. If all of that isn't enough to give you a sense of existential dread, no problem. Just go ahead and consider the fact that we still have thousands of nuclear weapons in the world pointed at one another that could be set off at any time.
Cool.
I mean,
Hey,
that's less scary than a pandemic, especially us here and you guys there. We would be totally wiped out pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
So
All of
that's-
us would.
That's less scary. A
Okay.
quick death isn't scary. It's the slow decaying, rotting.
Corpse of humanity.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
Well, society, not humanity. Humans will live on.
maybe.
I'm pretty sure we're pretty resilient
Well,
as a species,
Maybe.
but our
not
society
humans,
is fragile.
Not humans as we know them.
Well,
Might be walking around with an arm coming out of her forehead or whatever the fuck.
well, who knows? Mutants
That's
are,
fine.
mutants are people too.
I'd like another prehensile limb. That'd be handy for me.
Or maybe just a third eye.
That'd be cool. I'd actually like a prehensile tail. I've always wanted one.
Yeah, that would be neat. Your balance would be so good.
Oh my God.
You know?
It'd be dope.
2 extra arms would be great, honestly. If I could have extra of anything, just 2 extra arms. That'd be so fucking useful.
Oh my gosh. You'd be a terrific mechanic. Think of all the things that you could hold while you were tightening and screwing.
Or a server. So many trips I wouldn't have to take.
Or just carrying groceries.
Or carrying groceries.
Oh my gosh. When you put it that way, why aren't our top scientists working right now on a genetically engineered human being with 4 arms?
I'm sure they are.
Are our researchers on that?
Yes.
Sure they are. We
Oh,
just don't know
Chinese.
about it. I'm sure they're locked in a fucking cage with the jigsaw collar around their neck and the orange jumpsuit. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Subsection 3 of lithium mine 13A.
Lithium mine 13A.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the Church of Universal Energy and the Infinite Multiverse, you don't need to worry about not having enough arms to carry in your groceries or wash your car or do some mechanical thing, because we'll help you grow an extra pair of arms, not just in this universe, but in every universe in the entire multiverse. What do I need to do, you ask? Give us all your fucking money.
Good plug. I liked it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
We need to make a jingle, not live on a podcast, because that was bad last time we did that, but we do need to make a jingle.
Yeah, we'll work on that. In fact, I've worked out a jingle for Plenty of Pills. Plenty of pills, plenty of pills, plenty of pills, plenty of pills. At Plenty of Pills Pain Management and Drive-Thru Martini Bar, we understand that sometimes accidents happen. You never know when a pleasant bike ride in the park with your loved ones can end up with both your knees twisted sideways out of your legs, or when crossing the street can end up with a grand piano falling from 2 stories directly onto your head, forcing your spine out through your anus. These things don't just happen in cartoons, they also happen in our hypothetical situations, so the smartest plan of action for you is to get ahead of the pain and start taking our pills now, before anything even happens. At Plenty of Pills Pain Management and Drive-Thru Martini Bar, we offer top-shelf gin and vodka, along with a huge selection of medications that can be placed right onto your tongue and washed down with an extra dry martini from the comfort of your own vehicle. No prescription, no problem. Our staff medical professionals can whip up your script before you're even done placing your order. And we've got pills and liquor for every price range, from deluxe name-brand painkillers and high-end gin to our dollar pill generics and well vodka. So don't wait for the accident to happen to you. Get on down to Plenty of Pills and stay ahead of the pain.
Plenty of pills, plenty of pills, plenty of pills, plenty of pills.
Cool.
As you said you would, and I'm glad that you did that. But, you know, give us all your fucking money is such a great slogan. Such a great slogan. We need a jingle to go with it. It's got to be catchy.
You're right. We'll get on that. And, you know, Noah's working on it. In fact, Noah, I understand that you bought a new keyboard.
Yeah, that's correct. Way too much money, like a whole paycheck.
You spent a paycheck on a keyboard, so as soon as you learn to play that thing, I'm really excited about the output.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
You got nothing but time.
I need a USB to USB cord, Sarah, and I need you to help me figure out how to get the noise from my piano onto my computer.
Okay. What are you doing Wednesday? Well, really, what are you doing?
Nothing.
What are you doing Monday?
A little too much came up. Monday, I got a doctor's appointment on, you mean tomorrow?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, doctor's appointment at 10, and then I have...
What are you doing after 1600? After 4 o'clock?
Stop fucking using military
after 4
time.
o'clock.
Well, I'm supposed to also get my car fixed tomorrow, too.
Okay, so we'll talk Wednesday.
So Monday's kind of a wash.
I thought your heart stress test wasn't until the 14th.
Yeah, it's the 12th.
Good luck on your stress test.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm going to try to schedule an MRI, too. I've been having brain pains. I kind of always have had those, so I'm sure it's nothing. But let's just have a look.
Why not have a gander? Well, good luck with your medical appointments. Noah, what you got going on this week?
You know, just going to work. Probably going to go to Panama City next weekend, so might not be on the pod.
PCB, baby! Wow!
PCB is where people from Alabama go when they're fleeing the law.
Oh.
And also when they're on spring break.
Same time, actually.
Yeah, often at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. And so I hope you enjoy your trip to PCB, and I hope I hope your sexually transmitted disease clears up.
Gee, thanks.
No problem.
What?
I got a yeast infection, and so Dad decided to out me on that.
Men can get those?
Yeah, man. Yeah, fun fact.
Yeast grows anywhere.
How?
Yeah, that's
where it's
right.
damp and warm.
Where does it? What is that?
Where does it go?
Yeah, where does it come from?
Just
Where
looks
does
like
it
a
go?
rash. What it is jock itch. It's the exact same thing.
Oh,
as
yeah.
jock.
Oh, yeah, okay.
My condolences, man.
That's not
Yeast
really
infections suck.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had jock itch, man. That's not a sexually transmitted disease.
No, it's not. But
It
no,
can just
no,
happen.
apparently
Yeah,
it is.
why would you fucking do that, Dad?
Yeast
Why would you
infections
just blow
aren't
up
always
his spot
STIs
like that?
either. Like yeast infections also can just happen.
Because sexually transmitted diseases are funny.
Well, okay. When you put it like that, I do see it. But, you know, I remember last time I was in Panama City Beach. Actually, it wasn't the last time, but when I was there, well, it wasn't spring break. It was just my senior year. We got out early. But I know that I almost wrecked your truck about 100 times looking at all the women.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I don't think I was there for that.
No, you weren't.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah. Congratulations on not wrecking that truck. Still have it.
Still not wrecked.
Still not wrecked. Brad's working on it. All right, honey, what do you got going on this week?
Dick.
Right on. How about you, Sarah?
Nothing that anybody gives a shit about. Hey, but Elsie, how'd your interview go?
It went fine. I don't think I knocked anyone out of the park, but unless somebody else did, you know, it was fine. And I did hear that one of them sucked, and the other gal who's the primary competition did also interview for another position within the organization. So they'll probably just do the right thing and give her that job and give me this job.
Cool.
Is it?
That's good. That's good.
I
Right?
have mixed feelings, but, you know, theoretically, a pension would be, you know, optimal.
At what cost? At what cost?
Just continue to consult the cards and, you know,
Exactly.
that'll make you right with the universe.
Thank you. Good advice.
Now, I'll tell you what I got going on this week. Man, I've got an action-packed week planned. Action-packed.
I feel like you're being facetious, but lay it on us.
Well, first I'm going to edit this pod. That's going to be fantastic. Then I'm going to do a lot of things, and then I'm going to do some kung fu, and I'm going
Then you'll
to...
check into the doctor's office after inevitably hurting yourself.
I think the kung fu is probably it.
All right, that's fair.
Are you serious?
No, of course. I don't know any kung fu.
You could take some kung fu classes.
I could, I
That
suppose.
might be fun.
I
Sure.
keep thinking about picking up kickboxing. It's in the
Kickboxing
same.
would be fun.
Yeah.
You should do that.
Vein.
Well, I mean, maybe after the pandy, but
After
What pandemic? In Omaha? There's no fucking pandemic.
yeah. I'm hoping, like, I hope that Trump doesn't win just so any president will come in here and be like, hey, now we're going to do this right. Okay. Now we're going to do it like how we were supposed to do it.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, at any point at this show, did I say welcome to a Shin Show?
No.
Now, who cares?
you,
Well-
you'll find a good spot to slide that intro in. I believe in you.
You should just do it right now.
Yeah,
Right
let's
now.
do it. Welcome to a Shin Show. I'm your host, Pete Shin. Joining me, as always, Sarah, Nick, Noah, and Elsie.
Hello.
Hello and goodbye. Click. If I had a flip phone, I'd shut it.
Oh, I miss flip phones.
Just for that, though, you know?
Dude, I legit saw a bitch in. Okay, she wasn't a bitch. She was a nice old lady in Walmart the
Just
other day.
call her a bitch. It's fine.
But she was like talking to her grandkids or something. I felt instantly rude just calling her a bitch.
I
Anyway,
bet
the
she
point
was a bitch.
probably she had one of those power scooters.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was talking on a fucking flip phone, on an LG flip phone. I was like, how fucking old is that thing? So they're still out there, guys. We could totally revert if we felt so inclined.
Probably had a jitterbug. You remember those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
remember
they were
that.
they were cell phones specifically for old and special people.
Oh,
They
Yeah.
just had giant numbers on it, and that's it.
oh well, that's actually
Call, hang up, just numbers, flip phone.
cool. That is look. I'm not going to knock things that increase mobility and usability for people with disabilities.
Well, with disabilities, yeah, but for old people, I'm like, hey, stop being lazy.
They're
Like, when
not
like,
lazy.
I
They
can't
can't-
figure out the remote.
No,
hey,
they can't
figure it
see
out.
it. They
You
don't-
got time.
Hey.
You got time.
Can
They might
I?
have a tremor?
Your dad wasn't disabled till he got old. So being old can be a disability.
I feel
Dad-
like Dad's gonna know how to use the remote control until
It's
the day
not-
he dies.
It's not about knowing how. It's about having the physical ability to
See the
work
fucking
it.
buttons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Listen, I can't wait for your fucking eyesight to go bad, bud. It's
Right.
gonna happen.
Not gonna
Or
live
real
that long,
arthritic
it's fine.
fingers where you can't hit small buttons.
Yeah. So Murphy, I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about this, but Murphy has a guy that is in her group, and he's, classic blue collar guy. And so anytime they do any sort of art activity or anything, like they were making bracelets the other day, and she said
what
the
does
guy
that have to do with psychology?
it's group counseling.
It's occupational therapy.
Okay, keep going.
It doesn't
Sorry.
matter. If you really want to know, ask her. But they were making bracelets, and she said this guy was just losing his fucking mind because his thick fingers couldn't get the beads on the little tiny thing.
They were
And
doing this over Zoom.
no, she goes into
Oh, they stopped doing online stuff.
the separate thing. This is a separate thing. This is part of her internship that she has to go in person and do.
Okay.
She's a very busy person.
Okay.
So anyway, that's the point being that some people have big sausage fingers and can't push the tiny buttons on the remote. And
Wow.
it's bad for their blood pressure. So therefore big jitterbugs exist. You're welcome.
It took a long time to get to that point. So
Yeah, it
worth it,
did.
though. So fucking worth it. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
No, but I appreciate you trying to make me feel like it was worth it.
That's what I do. I try and make people feel better about themselves. It's my special power. It's my superpower.
Yeah, unless you're blowing up their spot talking about STDs they don't have.
Yeah.
It's one or the other with you.
You just never know
least-
what you're going to get.
At least we did clear that up.
Hey, by the way,
Yeah, well, it's not cleared up just yet. Yeah.
Well, but ladies and gentlemen, Noah does not have an STI and is available.
Thank you.
Well, he just doesn't have an STI. He's
Not
going to want to get
Oh,
that
he's
taken care of.
Look,
yeah.
by the time Dad gets around to editing the shit and putting it out on the air, and then the requests start coming in, look, I know how
All he
long yeast
needs-
infections take to clear up.
All he needs is a spackle knife.
Oh,
Just spackle it off.
Jesus.
Scrape it off.
Oh, God.
Scrape it.
and then save that fungi in for a
Yeah,
jar
put it
later.
in a jar. Yeah. On your
Get some
on your
spores.
on your bed, on your nightside table, until it grows sentient like venom and breaks out of the fucking mason jar and takes over your entire body, and then you're a superhero.
Right. Jock itch. The superhero. What's your superpower? I make your junk itch. Really bad.
Bad.
I mean,
Try
real
clambering
bad.
through that fucking. You know how long it takes to get that bat suit off?
You're gonna have jock itch from your fucking genitals down to your toenails, buddy.
Everywhere. Not just
Your nuts to your fucking cantaloupe, son.
Wow. I'm excited about Noah having a new superpower. I don't know what his
That he grows himself.
Yeah, he's gonna have to cultivate it, of course.
Well, that's true.
God. You have to scrape it, put it in a jar, cultivate it,
Right.
love it,
Well,
feed it Wheaties.
Nurture it.
well, we'll have to check in on that next week and see how the superpower's coming along. And until then, love you, bye.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.
The Chiefs and the Bears both have positive COVID-19 tests.
Guess what? This thing's still going around. So wash your hands, wear a mask. See ya.
Love you,
All
bye.
right. Bye-bye.
A Shin Show is a production of Shinfluence. It features the voices and opinions of the Shin family, which are entirely and exclusively their own. Join us each week on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks as always to our regular listeners. We love to hear from you, so if you have a question, comment, recommendation, or idea you would like to submit to a Shin Show, please email us at ashinshow@gmail.com, and we will be happy to ignore it, belittle you publicly, or steal your ideas if you actually have a good one. And don't forget, if it ain't ass, it's shit.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.